Hi and welcome to the channel. I am Manali. I am here with another case study today. This is from a podcast called Unchurned, which is 14 months old. And I have this wonderful case study where we got into the charts within the 10 days of launch. And then currently it's ranking in the top 2% of all the podcasts globally. And I have some cool things to share. So let's get into it. So this is the case study of Unchurned. Unchurned is a podcast hosted by Josh Schachter, the founder and CEO of Update AI. It is for professionals who are looking to begin or grow their roles in customer success space. And this is the primary audience. The secondary audience is founders and leaders in the tech and startup industry. Here are some notable results that we have been able to produce for Unchurned. It hit the charts in several nations in the entrepreneurship and business category within less than 10 days of launch. It has 150 plus 5-star ratings and reviews on Apple and Spotify together, and 29 reviews on Apple Podcast. Within 6 months of its launch, it was among the top 2.5% of the world's podcasts, and currently it is in the top 2% of all the podcasts globally. It's 14 months old right now. And then the individual episodes and the show as a whole have been consistently ranking on Apple podcast charts in the entrepreneurship and business categories, which are the primary categories of the show. Ever since it has launched, the show has featured best-selling authors like Jeffrey Moore, Kelly Leonard from The Second City. It also had Kindra Hall, who's the author of Stories That Stick book. It's a really good storytelling book on storytelling, and we've also had esteemed guests from top organizations like Nick Mehta, Mike Molinet, Edward Chu on the podcast, and customer success leaders and CCOs from top companies like Cloudflare, Google, Tutango, Zora, Workday, and on and on and on. What I really love about the podcast is that when you hear back from listeners, it feels like your life as a podcaster has come full circle. The podcast has recently crossed 10,000 podcast downloads with 60% overall retention rate. The last quarter retention rate was 75%, and it has surpassed 3K views on YouTube, which is not a primary platform for this podcast, but yeah. So a bit about me before we dig into the rest of the case study. I am Manali. I'm a podcast producer, and I've been producing podcasts for the past 2 years. So far, I have worked on more than 400 episodes. Because I stopped counting after 400, so 400 is the real number that I know. And then I've worked for 17 podcasters in this short span and produced 4 shows that hit Apple charts in several nations. I am an engineer by education, and I love to take your message to your audience. So I love marketing as well. So this is one myth that I want to burst, because early on in my career, I got started on Upwork. I really saw people having expectations which went over the roof, and they expected some magic to happen overnight, which is not the case with podcasting. But podcasting demands your willingness to commit to the process to create high quality content, test new ideas, and stack a heap load of content, and over a period of time you will see success. It is highs, lows, valleys, peaks and plateaus. You'll see everything, but it's not a straight linear rising linear line. So good things take time. Believe in the process and commit with a longer vision. This is what I would like to convey. Now the challenge that we had was we wanted visibility for the startup, and the founder had been doing LinkedIn lives, but they weren't serving the purpose, as you can see. And then, seeking an effective approach, Josh, the founder, decided to, get into podcast, and that's when he reached out to me. And we launched the podcast like within a month and a half. And within 10 days of launch, it ranked on Apple charts in several countries. Here's a screenshot from the United States of America entrepreneurship category. It had been at the peak position of 168. It launched the podcast somewhere around here, right before this. This is the day I took the screenshot. Yeah, and then Churned had seen initial success, but the real thing is initial success gets stagnated when you don't keep innovating yourself. Stagnation kills growth, so you need to keep testing to grow. If you don't test, you don't see growth. So with Unchurned, we have been testing out different strategies to keep up the audience retention and also bring in new people as listeners to the show. So here's what Josh had to say. Unchurned launched with a bang. We hit the charts within the launch week, and we've been testing out new ideas to keep the attention of our audience, and the results are amazing. Unchurned has allowed them to, build relationship with the guest and get response from the listeners as well. And it has helped update AI. So I would like to now share a few things that we did in order to grow Unchurned to the top 2% of all the shows globally. Firstly, we tested out new podcast episode formats. First, we had like a conversation kind of a podcast where the host Josh used to ask questions to his guests and they would answer, and we had an Unchurned segment there. Now we are more into a co-host kind of a thing, which has been able to drive listeners and get them engaged as well. We also invited esteemed guests to the show, and the next thing we tried out was collaborating with others in the industry, which were already in producing content for the same kind of people which we were targeting. We collaborated with them. We also incentivized the listeners to leave ratings and reviews. Now, the thing I would like to add, like a little disclaimer here, that ratings and reviews don't actually affect your podcast rankings. This is what Apple Podcast has said. But before, I would like to give this analogy. Before you make an Amazon purchase, let's say you're purchasing a coffee mug on Amazon, before you add it to your cart or make the final checkout purchase, you look at the ratings and reviews. You want to see what people are talking about it before you finally commit to listening like paying your time or paying your money. So it adds to your credibility having a good amount of ratings and reviews. The other thing that we did was we made episodes which were specifically speaking to the audience and addressing their pain points. With this, we also not just address their pain points, we also help them figure out the next step. So here's what Josh has to say about me. Josh is the founder of Update AI and the host of the Unchurned podcast. This is what he has to say about me. Basically, to summarize this, he says that I am the podcast producer and I'm dedicated and committed and accountable for the results that Unchurned has seen, and it's easy and pleasure to work with me. He has actually recommended me to many of his friends, and yeah, it's fun working on this podcast. I really enjoy working on the podcast, and he also once every while gives me feedback about the content that is going out on Unchurned, which is lovely. So that is the case study for today. I hope you got something out of it. And if you need support launching a podcast or managing or brainstorming ideas for your current podcast, then you can reach out to me. Call booking link is in the description of this video, and You can also find it on my channel banner of the YouTube. Yeah, what else? Yeah. Thank you so much for, if you're watching till the end, thank you so much for all your attention. And like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel for more on podcasting and content. I am Manali, signing off.